Hey everyone, it's been a few months, a few updates from the shop here. Thought I'd take a couple minutes and walk you through it. First thing I've got kind of working on here is the compressor for my air compressor setup. It's was pretty pigged up when I got it. I've spent a good part of the day kind of chipping away all the old paint and grime off of these fins that help kind of keep it cool. When I started here, these were about half the distance, the thickness you can see here, just with old grime and stuff. So I hit them with a wire brush, and it actually ended up using a flat blade screwdriver and a rubber mallet to kind of chisel away some of the stuff. I got this compressor from a guy that owned a paint and body shop, and clearly he didn't really take care of it. There's a lot of paint overspray on it, a whole bunch of grime. I had it hooked up briefly. It was working fine. Just figured before I put it on the new tank that I got, I'd clean it up a little bit so that it runs a little cooler. Just overall runs a little bit cooler. Speaking of new tanks, that's the new tank I got. I've already moved the motor over to it and hooked up some of the initial plumbing. And then at some point in the near future, we'll get that big cast iron beast up on top of that tank and get it all wired up and plumbed in. The TR8 is away for the winter, covered underneath Daniel's Spitfire. If you remember in the last video, Daniel's Spitfire had rubber bumpers and a pretty beat red bonnet on it. So I had a bunch of good friends come over this summer. We made barbecue and we did a swap on the bonnet, and while we were at it, we also converted it to chrome bumpers front and rear. Got rid of the big ugly rubber bumpers, and we replaced the front overriders with the nice thin European ones. So that's coming along slowly as Daniel gets time to work on it. We are now starting on the inside with some of the wiring. We found a couple of shorts in the wiring, so we're working on getting those squared away, and then we'll put the dashboard in and get going on the interior. Spitfire is pretty much away for the winter as well. I just need to get the cover on it to keep all the dust and everything off of it. So that's really all that's happened here this year so far, other than we did get one new project. This is a 1948 Crosley Wagon. It's actually an American car, which is different for me. It was made by the Crosley Company out of Cincinnati, Ohio. I believe this car itself may be made in Indiana. I'd have to double check that. But this came to me. I wasn't looking for another project, but my good friend Ted said, "Have I got a deal for you?" And I can't resist an oddball, quirky car. So Crosley was a big appliance manufacturer back in the day. They made radios. The name still exists, actually, that you can buy a Crosley radio today, but it's not the same company. They were really popular pre-war with their appliances, radios, refrigerators, things like that. And the Crosley Company did so well that Mr. Crosley said, "Well, I've always wanted to make automobiles." And even though all his folks around him said, "You really don't want to get into that," he said, "The heck with it. I have a whole lot of money. I'm going to make automobiles." So he made a series of cars starting pre-war and ending in the early 1950s. They were very inexpensive cars, very utilitarian. This particular one still has the original Cobra engine in it, which stands for copper brazed. It's actually a sheet metal engine block that weighs somewhere around 40 or 50 pounds. Not a great design. The antifreeze of the day was salt-based, and it frequently corroded the blocks badly. So they came out with a cast iron version of the block later. This particular one happens to still have the Cobra block in it, so going to get the plugs out soon and soak the pistons and see if I can get it to turn over and go from there, see if it has compression and all that good stuff. If it doesn't, the good news is I did get a cast iron block with the car, with the huge number of spare parts that came with it. And the car itself is fairly straight, fairly rust free. You see a lot, but it's all surface rust. The only real significant rust issues are on the floor pans on the inside. You can see they're pretty well gone, but it's a neat car. I believe somewhere in the neighborhood of 27 horsepower, so it is definitely not a hot rod, but kind of a cool 4-passenger front seats plus rear bench seat. Those are out right now, but I do have them back in the storeroom. Kind of neat split tailgate here. If I can get this with one hand, this guy opens up and then the bottom comes down, drops down. I'm not going to be able to get that with one hand because there are spring-loaded pins on that. You can see the Crosley emblem is still on the rear. I have the front as well, but there's a cross on the rear with a red jewel and the words "A Fine Car," which was their tagline for the cars. So the rear is a red jewel. The front was the same emblem with a clear jewel in it. And like I said, I have both of those. You'll notice that it has no reverse lamps, no turn signals. It's really the original car would have only had one stoplight, brake light. The other one on here was added on at some point by a former owner. This particular one sat in a heated garage in the condition you see it for about 40 years. Just kind of piled up with stuff all over it. So I got it for a very reasonable price, and I think we'll probably make this, at the rate I'm going, this will probably be a post-retirement project to really get into it. But yeah, 27 horsepower, 4-cylinder, overhead cam engine, single tiny little carburetor, and the gearbox in it is a 3-speed non-synchronized gearbox, so it should be interesting to drive that with double clutching and grinding it to get it into gear. So that's the only real addition to the shop this year. I've got everything else kind of tucked away here for winter storage, and we're going to get the compressor reassembled, get that up and running, get that in its place in the back storeroom behind the red door there. And then once that's done, we can plumb in the air lines and I can get my blasting cabinet up and running, and I can start cleaning up some rusty parts and getting them painted up and put back together. So Daniel's car is the priority right now because it is occupying my lift, and we need to get it off of there so I can get other cars on the lift and start working on them. The next car in the list is the Singer. I think I talked about this in the last video, so I won't go through it too much. But it's a 1952 Singer 4AD Roadster. This one does run. I've driven it around the yard a few times. It's an incredibly difficult car to drive. It's got an enormous steering wheel and a very tiny amount of space between the gas and the brake. So for my big American feet, it's kind of difficult to get in there. Also a neat car, 1500cc overhead cam engine, single carburetor. Next project on this is to rebuild that carburetor, and then I'm also going to get a new wiring harness for the car and rewire it. As you can see, it's all splices and wire nuts, and I think there's some appliance cord over there running off of the running down to the generator. It's a mess. This car is also positive earth, so the positive side of the battery goes to the ground of the car. The Crosley is also positive ground, and this Crosley is actually a 6-volt positive ground. So more new things to learn. Yay. So I think that's it, guys. I don't think I have anything else to show you or anything else new in the shop. So we're gonna get going on the compressor on Daniel's car. We did do the new seats for Daniel's car a few months ago. We're just waiting to get the headrests put together, and then those can go in once the interior is ready. And I think that's it. So I'll try and do an update when I have some more progress to report. So thanks for watching.